A perplexing problem around the country has always been, what do you do with the growing drug problem and mental health problem? Well, a new program is starting in Davis County that may find some real solutions. Hi everybody, welcome to the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. Today we are going to be looking at the Receiving Center in Davis County. This is a recent program that is turning heads and grabbing attention around the country as an innovative way to help people overcome addiction problems.
Where do you turn when you or someone you know is in crisis, struggling with addiction, mental health, or is suicidal? Law enforcement ends up seeing these cases with more frequency, but lack the tools for helping these people. The challenge has prompted a different response in Davis County, a receiving center.
The concept behind the receiving center is to be able to get these people help instead of incarcerating them and putting them in the judicial system, which then becomes more expensive, not only with what we have to throughout the counties and the state as far as going through the process, but also with how it affects them and their families. One of the things we want to do is be able to help people correct a problem and be able to get back to work, get back to their families, and not have the impact of what the judicial system can do to them.
A receiving center is a community, we could call it a building, we could call it a place, but it's essentially an access point where, regardless of the situation, if somebody is having a behavioral health, a substance use, a mental health related crisis or distress, as they define it, they're able to access help immediately at that critical juncture.
Immediate access to services in these situations is imperative, because an individual doesn't have time to wait when they are at the end of their rope.
I like to explain the state of crisis to people as if anybody has ever been in a car accident. Immediately following that car accident, your mind is all jumbled, right? You're anxious, you're overwhelmed, your heart's racing, right? You can't think clearly. If you try and remember back to that time, the memory is jarbled, right? It's not clear. You don't understand, the thought process isn't linear. Oftentimes our consumers that are in crisis are in that very same emotional state. So it's really important for people that when they're in that place, they're able to access that immediate help. It's incredibly individualized. And we have an array of services here to essentially make sure that we're making the right recommendations, providing the right evaluations, and passing people off to the right level of care immediately after. We would like the receiving center to become the beacon of help for our community, right? The place where people know that if they have a family member or if they have a loved one or law enforcement has a person that's in crisis or struggling in some kind of way, they understand that help is available and easy to access, and no questions asked, we'll figure it out from here.
The program is only a couple months old, but has touched the lives of dozens of individuals who are still functioning in society, rather than waiting from a jail cell. For the County Seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
We'll be right back. We'll continue our conversation about this new program in Davis County, and we'll pick up the conversation with our guests right after this break. Well, welcome back to the County Seat. We are talking today about the Receiving Center, a new program that has just been in operation a few months here in Davis County that's really changing the nature of how people get help for mental health and drug addiction problems. Joining us for the conversation is Nicole Cunha, who is the program director here at the Receiving Center, Chief Tom Ross, Chief of Bountiful Police Department, and Commissioner Bob Stevenson from Davis County. Thank you all for joining us. I think it would be best to start with the genesis. This came out of your efforts and went to the legislature. How did this all begin?
Maybe the best way to start with it is over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been representing the Chiefs of Police Association at the Capitol and at the state level. And there's been a lot of discussions about mental health, drug addiction, justice, criminal justice reform, and police relationships with communities. And as I've sat in to literally hundreds of meetings over the years, a couple things became very clear. that law enforcement really had not been put in a position to win in this discussion. We were being squeezed right in the middle. And the reason being is, as we've tried to find new ways to deal with these problems or issues, addiction, mental health, part of that's been by not incarcerating as many. That's a big argument. Reduce incarceration, give more treatment. But for those that are victims of crime, they get frustrated and angry with law enforcement. They feel like we're not doing enough to protect them. And then if you look at this vulnerable population of those addicted to substance use and mental health, they don't want to see law enforcement showing up because they're afraid we're going to arrest them or take them to a hospital where they're going to incur costs. So it just seemed that there needed to be a better way that law enforcement could be seen as the good guys and gals instead of just the ones that are coming in that nobody wants to see. And as I started talking with other Davis County officials, Brandon Hatch, the CEO of Davis Behavioral Health, we were looking for a way that we could get someone help without actually arresting or citing them, which has really been the standard all along. And that's kind of what started this process.
What is the motivation for somebody to actually come in? I mean, you find somebody that in your duty with a call or a tip or something that's got a substance abuse problem, and rather than arrest them, they come here, but it sounds like it's kind of a voluntary thing, isn't it? Are there some people that say, please arrest me?
Yeah, I do think that it is 100% voluntary. And ultimately, what we hope is that by providing people this alternative or this option to be able to access treatment in lieu of incarceration, that will be intervening at an earlier junction within what we refer to as kind of that pathway to or pipeline to incarceration, to the criminal justice system. But yes, for certain, there are definitely people that elect to just go ahead and say, I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to take my time. But we've had so many that have accepted the help. And the other piece of this that's incredibly important is that this isn't only about diversion for jail, right? The receiving center functions as this community crisis hub, right? So if people need help, we want to be here to help them. So many of our law enforcement referrals actually aren't facing any kind of criminal charges. They're just people that have had law enforcement contact that are reaching out to law enforcement, and law enforcement is saying, hey, we have a place where we can go to help you.
What was the county's response when Chief Ross first started talking about this?
Oh, there was no question that this is something we were very excited about. We believe that within our county, if anything we can do as far as help the mental health side, it's very important. We've all seen the growth in the mental health cases and the problems dealing with these opioids and also with suicides and that. And to be able to have a functioning center here to be able to help people under a new concept, which Chief Ross has come up with, has been absolutely wonderful. And we believe it is a model that we're testing, that we will find this ending up going all across the country because of what we're able to do. I believe to date there's been approximately 76 people who have been brought in, and the help that they've been given, again, it's one of those things that some of these people could have been incarcerated. In this way, we're trying to keep them, employed with their families, and also getting the help that they need through the law enforcement and also through the Davis Behavioral Health.
Before this center, how did people get to the resources? Were they kind of fractured and split apart?
Yeah, so I would describe Davis Behavioral Health, of course, as really a very, very helpful and open door agency. However, the consumer, when they're looking for help, often feels the result of what I would refer to as siloed care, right? So we oftentimes have many pathways to help, but for the average person, they may not understand the mental health system. Or if you think about when a person's in crisis, right, their logic and their reasoning is incredibly impaired. So this is really wonderful because it just takes all the guesswork out, right? Once you can come here and access services here, we're doing our best to resource facilitate and connect you to the right help, whether it be mental health, whether it be substance use, whether it be resources that are incredibly important for recovery in the long term as well.
Some people are going to look at this and they're going to go, well, this is just another easygoing version of drug court or a DORA program. How's it different?
So I think what was important for the law enforcement piece is we want to improve public safety. If we're going to do things that are going to put the public at risk, law enforcement's going to struggle getting behind some of these programs, and I think that's been part of the challenge all along. The beauty of this program is at the law enforcement contact, the very early stage of this, we have an ability now to take somebody to get help instead of a jail where they get pushed down deeper into a hole that they have to climb out of, and do it in a positive way that they're actually excited about. We're removing them from the street, so the public safety benefit is they're not left there in the community. They're coming here and they're starting treatment right away. In the past, it could have taken weeks or months for somebody to get into a court-appointed treatment because they've got to go through all that process. And so they're coming here, they're removed from the street. If we were to book them into jail, they would likely be released in 2 or 3 hours, and they're back on the street again. They're staying here for at least 20 plus hours, 72 hours, some even longer, and they're getting very intensive treatment in a very positive way. Who can't say that that's not worth trying to do?
Is this an expensive program from the county's point of view?
Actually, to this point, it hasn't been. I think one thing that needs to be pointed out is that when the individuals are brought in here, there's no cost to them as far as that goes. The goal is to basically get these people help and get them back on the street. There's help, I think, getting them lined up with insurance companies and different things so they can know financially how they can work through this process. From the county standpoint, we've pretty well said that we want to support this and make this work, and we'll go from there on it.
Mental health problems appear to just be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't know if it's a matter of it's just not discovered and it's always been here in the community, or whether there are more community problems than there used to be. Do you envision that programs like this may ever help find a bottom to it and actually start bringing it back?
That's the hope, right? And, when it comes to different issues that tend to plague mental health, right? So depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar, particular symptoms or presentations of disorders, or so talk about suicide, right? The goal is to be able to offer early intervention, to be able to create community awareness, be able to create improved access to mental health, but also really I think we're doing something a little bit bigger, is that we're shifting the social perception of some of these problems, right? In substance use, right? So we are able to really start shifting some public perception, shifting some of law enforcement interaction, to be able to allow people to realize that help is available and help is out there, right? And it's okay to get it, right? And if I could do anything within my career, it would be to shift some of that framework. And I think eventually that will start to bring the bottom back up, creating more social networks, social ties, where we're able to kind of connect with other people and get them the help that they need when they need it.
Excellent. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to explore some of the implications of criminal records versus non-criminal records and the openness of this facility when we come back on the county seat. Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about the receiving center. This is not a place that you go to pick up packages. It's a center that receives you to get help with mental health and drug addiction problems. Joining our panel for the discussion is Davis County Sheriff Kelly Sparks. Sheriff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Would this experimental program have been more expensive had you not had facilities?
Certainly it would have. I mean, that's probably one of the major costs associated with developing a program like this, is where do you house it? Do you build a building? Do you find a building and renovate it? We were very fortunate in that we were able to move some of the programs that the Davis County Jail was operating in this facility into other parts of our facility and be able to make this space available.
Was this a hard sell to get this whole thing going?
I think it was a hard sell for some folks. It was not particularly a hard sell for me. Public safety is absolutely our most important mission and our number one goal. I think for a long time we've struggled with substance use disorders. We've struggled with mental health and the interconnection that those things have with crimes that occur in our community. And what this really does is it looks at the cause of those crimes, and we're trying to address the problem from the root cause rather than just incarcerating and warehousing people, and maybe they come out better at the end and maybe they don't, but it really focuses on what's the cause of the crime. If we can solve the cause, then we make the public safe.
Do you feel that the results of a program like this are better if you catch somebody before they've spent time in jail?
I believe so, for many reasons. One is there's a, like it or not, there's a stigma that goes with being arrested. There's a stigma that goes with having a criminal record. Even spending time in jail, it can be difficult. If somebody is in there for a couple of days, they may lose their job. So we want people to get better. We want to heal them. We want to make them better coming out of the process. But there's a lot of things that are just more difficult for folks who have a criminal record or an arrest record. So that's the beauty of this program, is it avoids that record.
Is there a problem with jail contamination? It's probably not the right phrase right now, but I mean, is that an additional concern?
I suppose what you mean by that is do people come out with a more criminal mindset after spending some time in jail than they had before they went in? I think we combat that every day. We work on programming for our inmates. Our goal is to make them better citizens coming out than when they went in. But the fact is they're associating with a lot of people in the jail who have criminal intent, criminal mindset, and could some of that pass off to them? Yeah, absolutely.
In your time out there, have you found that a lot of the people that have mental health and drug addiction problems that you come in contact with, that they really aren't criminal intent people, but they've just are, I don't know, messed up?
Of course, one of the issues is this just being soft on crime and being too easy. But I've said to folks, everyone look around this room at each other. There will be people in this room that are law enforcement officials that will find themselves in this problem sometime in their life, either through their own experience. You could have a surgery and find yourself addicted to pain meds. We've seen that happen over and over. You could have a mental illness issue that comes forward in your life as you age, or maybe you already are having some of those issues, depression and those things. So if we're willing to do things differently for our own and our own families, why wouldn't we be willing to do that for a stranger who has very likely found themselves in the same path? Even someone that may have made a choice at some point in their life to do an illicit drug, there's plenty of evidence and science to show that there were things that led them down that path that maybe had they had a stronger foundation, maybe they'd grown up in a different environment or a different DNA, any of those things, they wouldn't have been in that spot.
There's no question that this process with what we're looking at, a lot of times I think government, and really I think by nature, we hate change. We hate to see things and different ideas, and we get concerned about it. And I believe that what we're doing here is basically trying to be progressive. We're trying to say, if you go back 15, 20 years ago, the word opioid meant nothing to anybody. No one really understood what that meant. And as these painkillers and that has basically got a lot of people hooked, good people that get hooked and have problems within their life, this is a way of being progressive, of saying, hey, we're trying to come up with a way to be able to help this mental illness situation and this addiction problem, to be able to help people get through it without turning around and having to incarcerate people and create the stress on the system that it will on that side.
So you guys took this to the legislature and hoping to get some funding to expand it. What was the general reception?
I think everyone's excited about it. It's going to have to prove itself out over time as far as the long-term outcomes, but the short-term outcomes are phenomenal. People are coming into this facility feel completely different about law enforcement, which is a win right there for the people that I represent and that Kelly represents. And they're actually more motivated to get help, because they see this as a new opportunity that they've never had before.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back to finish our conversation here on the Receiving Center in Davis County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about the Receiving Center and a new program to help people overcome their drug addictions. Sheriff, you had to juggle stuff around. You had to make space available that was in work release, that had to go over to the jail, create a little bit more burden there. Is this a net plus, though, for your jail operation?
I believe it is. If not immediately today, certainly it will be in the future. We have seen over time increasing numbers of folks coming into the jails with substance use issues, with mental health issues, and that is a population that is extremely hard to manage in a jail. And incarcerating people is just an expensive process.
I was going to say it costs more for them to go there than here.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can take that money that we're spending on housing them in the jail and we can put it towards programs like this and other treatment programs, I think to the community that's a huge net effect. This population that's come to this center is a population that has many health problems and mental health problems that are hard to manage. So the burden that alleviates from our correctional officers to having to deal with those individuals, yeah, I think absolutely it's a net plus for us.
Commissioner, last word to you. What do you see from the community high level? How is this helping your community and your servants?
Well, I think it's doing two things. So first of all, it's helping people within our county. We want to be a progressive county, and we want to be able to have new ideas, new concepts, and I believe this is one thing that's doing is helping people. I think the other thing too is you can take the fiscal side of it, and there's no question, if we can keep people from being incarcerated, we're saving money. It's helping us, it's helping the taxpayers, and it's helping good things to take place throughout our county.
How does it do for the officers?
I think it's a very positive thing. These gentlemen can probably answer that a lot better, but there's no question. I think that this concept of a fireman, everybody thinks of a fireman somewhat as a teddy bear. Sometimes police people seem to be scared. No one likes to see the red and blue lights in the rearview mirror. But I think that part of this program and part of what these gentlemen are able to do will hopefully start to create that teddy bear feeling towards our police officers, which should be that way.
What a great way to end this conversation. Thank you for inviting us into your homes for this conversation. Please engage us on social media. Tell us what you think about this program and share it with your friends. That's how word gets out that a program like this might someday be in your community. We'll see you next week on The County Seat. Thank you for watching The County Seat. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications to keep up to date on the program and happenings around Utah.